Well, you got 7 different stories from 7 different news outlets, guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, and we start with The Guardian with an exclusive from them with the headline that the head of Britain's police chief says the force is institutionally racist. The exclusive reveals that Gavin Stevens becomes the most senior serving officer to accept discrimination at police operations at the fundamental level. Okay, that's great that another person has come out and accepted that the police are institutionally racist. So what are we doing about it? You know, it's all well and good accepting the findings and accepting that the police are disproportionately targeting black people more than white people. I welcome that they've accepted that, but that he's accepted that. But what's being done about it? It's not just about the acceptance and knowing that they have failed here. It's what they are doing to reverse this, what they're doing to improve this, what are they going to change about this. That's the questions I think people want to know. That's the questions that I want to know, and I'm sure that's the questions you guys want to know. Because yes, it's all well and good accepting responsibilities for your actions, but it's about what you do after is what matters as well. Excuse me. So the leader of Britain's police chief organisation has become the most senior serving leader to say that policing is institutionally racist, as he calls for a fundamental redesign of the national policies and practices to eliminate discrimination. Gavin Stevens, the chair of the National Police Chief Council, the NPCC, said black people should no longer experience disproportionate use of force and that too little progress has been made to reform policing, with some leaders slow to accept the size of the challenge. I swear we've heard this kind of rhetoric before and nothing's been done about it. Stevens, elected by his fellow chief consultables to lead the representative body, emphasised that it was his personal view that discrimination in policing operation is at an institutional level. In an interview with The Guardian, he said, "It's a leadership responsibility for us to describe to them what institutional racism means and what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that all police officers are racist." That is true. It does not mean that all police officers are racist. I know I do still get people in the comments section saying that all police officers are the same, and they're not. They're not. I know personally some police officers who are actually good police officers, who are not racist, who actually do good jobs, who do a decent job. Then I know the vast majority of people have this perception that all police officers are terrible, and that's not the case everywhere across the country. And if you generally believe that, I dare you to go out of your way and meet every single police officer in the country and make that description for yourself, rather than just assuming that police officers in your area are the same across the whole entire of the UK, because that's not the case. The way our policies, procedures and training have been designed and implemented for many years have not had the voices of black people involved in the design, the implementation of those practices. As a consequence of that, we get disproportionate outcomes in places where there shouldn't be disproportionate outcomes. The most helpful discussions for policing is to have in the future is how we redesign the policies, the practice, the implementation of policing to remove the discrimination. Stephen remarks come as policing continues to wrestle with the issue of whether it should accept it suffers from institutional discrimination, a debate dating back more than 30 years. Yes, it should. His intervention will add to pressure on the heads of England's biggest forces to adopt the idea, including Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley, who refuses to accept the terms institutionally racist and institutionally misogynist after a damning report last year with the Met Commissioner claiming their meaning were unclear. It is exactly what it says it is. It is exactly what it means it is, but he won't say it. Those findings by Louise Kazin in March after the murder of Severa Everard in 2021 were contained in the second part to find police to be institutionally racist. The first by Sir William Macpherson in 1999 followed an inquiry into the failings that allowed the racist killers of Stephen Lawrence to escape justice. Police leaders accepted the findings, then later claimed to have reformed the service to the extent that it no longer applied. Stevens said that his personal view that the report was correct. He said, "The problem is that we need to solve across policing at an industrial level, and that needs industrial change. Whether you look at the Macpherson definition in the Stephen Lawrence report, or whether you look at the Louise Casey definition, my personal view is that they're applying to policing. Asked for clarity on whether his personal view that police are institutionally racist, Stephen replied yes, while emphasising that his reason for reaching that conclusion was important. Police chiefs debated whether to admit the institutional racism in 2022, with being the most being against making the admission. Police Scotland, the second biggest police force in the UK, as well as Avion and Somerset Police and the British Transport Police, have accepted the term applies to them. But the three biggest forces in England, the Met, the West Midlands and Greater Manchester Police, all disagree. Stephen says colleagues have valid reasons why they don't want to go down that route. That's because some of them don't want to accept, their ownership and responsibilities of what they've done. After the murder of George Floyd in the US and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, NPCC promised reform and launched a race action plan, which critics said has done little or nothing after 3 years. No, it hasn't made a change. We know it hasn't made a change because people are still talking about it. Stephen says progress has been made, but that some of his fellow chiefs have been slow to accepting the scale of the problem. We've got some tangibles, and I'd like to be the first to accept that we haven't made progress at the rate that we want to, he said. To get acceptance on the scale of that challenge, we took longer than we anticipated. The NPCC chair said he personally supported the idea of police officers being licensed in the same way nurses and doctors were. He believed it would help professionalise the service and hoped for an active debate on it amongst his fellow chiefs. Stephen became the NPCC chair in March 2023, having previously been the chief constable in Surrey Police. The scale of the racial disparity in the use of police force in England and Wales was laid out by police leaders in 2022 when they launched the first written version of their race plan. They wrote black people are 7 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people and 5 times more likely to be subject to the use of force. 10% of our recorded searches, 27% of use of force incidents and 35% of taser instances involve someone from a black ethnic group. The latest estimates suggest that only 3.5% of the population is black. People have said that police stereotype black men as being more dangerous, Stephen, who grew up in Hartlepool, and said this is wrong. The myth that sometimes exists in popular culture that young black men are dangerous is a myth. Yes, young black men get involved in crime. Yes, they're at risk of victimization, but so do white men if you go to my neck of the woods. He added, you've got a cultural connection. If you've got something in common with the person that you're dealing with on the streets, there's a highly likelihood you're going to be able to resolve that issue without the resorting to the use of force. I've said it before and I've said it again about police, guys. My crux is that we've heard it so many times about reform, and it just doesn't get solved, guys. The best way for it to be dealt with is completely dissolve the police force and build a new one from scratch. I've talked about this before. What you do is these police forces have institutionally failed and they're too corrupt, and reform is just for me it's a waste of taxpayer money and it's a waste of time. It's not working. We've tried reform so many times, and I don't care how many times bang it on the drum, it doesn't work. It's not working. So what you do is you build a brand new police force from scratch, right? Completely from scratch. You don't get rid of the old one just yet. You build it from scratch. And what you do is you involve 1 or 2 members of the police. You don't involve all of them. You make sure that the direct communities are involved in it, the direct communities of where that police force is going to be. You make sure that the communities involved. You make sure the council are directly involved. Local government are involved directly to this police force in this area. And you make sure that they have the trainings and systems in place that basically teach them about the institutions of racism and making sure that the disparity and how important it is. And the vast majority of police officers that are built in these police forces are not from the previous police forces. You can bring over 1 or 2, but the vast majority have to be brand new, fresh. That's what you have to do. You have to build it fresh off the track. And you have to have special rules and all that kind of stuff in place, special training, all this kind of stuff. Yes, it will cost taxpayer money. It will cost taxpayer money. I'm not going to BS you guys. It's going to cost money, yeah. But if you want to stump it out, this is what you got to do, and it has to involve people too. If you want to restore any kind of faith in the police force, this is how you do it, in my opinion. And then as you build up this new police force, you slowly dissolve the old one. That's essentially how you do it. Because the vast majority of these police forces have failed. They failed in their duties as police officers. That's what I believe should be done anyway. Right, the next one we got here is from Sky News, guys. This is about the NHS strikes. So the headline is, the NHS just doesn't belong to junior doctors, says the Health Secretary as strikes continue. Victoria Atkins says the health service cannot be switched off and on a whim, as she warned that the walkouts are having very serious consequences for patients and other NHS workers. Guys, we have talked about this so many times. Victoria Atkins, like the rest of the Conservative dumbass party, don't get the problem. The problem is they refuse to get round the table and sit with these people. They won't sit around the table and negotiate with them. Labour will do that. Yeah, whatever you think about Labour, they will not just sit on their laurels and allow strikes to continue. They will get around the table to work out a deal. The Conservatives are flat out, blank out, refusing to strike any kind of deal. So I really am sick and tired of people blaming doctors and nurses here, when they are just trying to get a better pay. They're not just trying to get better pay rises, fair pay for themselves. Yeah, they're also doing it for the sake of the National Healthcare Service, for our well-being, that they're doing this for. They're doing this because they have to. These people are absolutely killing themselves for us. They're still killing themselves for us. Long after the COVID-19 pandemic, they're still killing themselves on absolutely pittance, yeah, to make ends meet. And yes, there is a cost of living crisis. I'm fully aware of that. And I know that there's a cost of living crisis, guys. Sorry, just 1 second. But it's so frustrating that people are just acting like everything is totally fine. That everything is totally fine, and that they're being greedy or whatever. That's complete and total BS. That's not the case here. They want a decent pay. They want decent terms and conditions. They want to make sure that they are getting the resources they need. And this Conservative government are not doing that. They have not been doing it for the last 13 years. They have not. Victoria Atkins has no clue. She will not get round the table with these people in any way, shape or form. The NHS doesn't just belong to striking junior doctors and can't be switched off and on a whim, the Health Secretary has said. Victoria Atkins turned up the heat in the government's row with the British Medical Association as their record-breaking walkout continues. Junior doctors in England are in the middle of a 6-day strike over pay and conditions, the longest industrial action in NHS history. The number of hospitals in England have pleaded for medics to leave picket lines to get back to work due to safety concerns, also known as derogation requests. But this has sparked a row with the BMA, has suggested the requests are politically motivated. Ms Atkins promised to start talks with the BMA in 20 minutes if the strikes were called off. Lie. Flat out lie. If she can talk to them now, yeah, if she won't talk to them about pay, yeah, she will not talk about pay, yeah, she will blub out a lot of rhetoric, and then that's it, or offer a one-off sum, something like that, but they will not give them a fair pay. Speaking on a visit to London's ambulance service, she told the PA news agency, I've said throughout this that please to the Junior Doctors Committee at this moment, if you call off the strikes, I'll get back round the table with you in 20 minutes. Why not get round the table now? That's the question I ask. Why won't they do it now? She said the strikes have to be called off for negotiations to happen because the NHS belongs to us all. Again, she's refusing to get round the table. She can get round the table right now. They're ready to talk, but she won't do it. It doesn't just belong to the Junior Doctor Committee and for the 1.3 million people who work in the NHS, as well, of course, for the tens of millions of people it looks after. The NHS cannot be switched off and on a whim. However, the BMA hit back, calling it a political choice for Downing Street to stick rightly to its dogma of not negotiating while strikes are planned. Professor Philip Barmill, the BMA Council Chairman, said, in the past the government have waived this principle for the barrister strikes, so there is no reason for them to waste time and money by refusing to talk now. We are clear, we are ready to talk 24/7. Get back round the table and give us a credible offer so we can end these strikes right now. There you go. See, right there, flat out, they've said they want to talk, but they won't talk, the government. It's very clear here, guys. The government gave junior doctors an 8.8% pay rise last summer, with an extra 3% offered during the last round of negotiations towards the end of the year. But the BMA rejected the 3% offer, saying it does not make up for the real terms pay cut of nearly a quarter of junior doctors since 2008. They want a full pay restoration and reversal real terms pay cuts since 2008-2009, a new pay mechanism to prevent any future pay decreases against inflation and the cost of living crisis, and a reform pay body review to safeguard recruitment and retention of junior doctors. Yeah, but we've been losing too many workplace forces as well. The strikes are a headache for Rishi Sunak as the UK enters an election year. The Prime Minister has staked his premiership on 5 key pledges, including cutting NHS waiting times. Although the backlog was at a record high before the industrial action broke out, over 1 million appointments have been cancelled or rescheduled due to the strike action by junior doctors and other workers in the NHS in the past year. While the government has managed to resolve other disputes with a new pay offer recently made to senior doctors, the row with junior medics shows no sign of abating. More than 20 derogation requests have been submitted to the BMAs for this round of strikes, but so far none have been approved. £15 an hour is not a fair wage for a doctor. It's not. Even the minimum wage that we have now is not enough for standard living. But we're talking about NHS health workers here for £15. The union said the NHS England and some trustees are refusing to provide evidence that they have undertaken steps to show that they have exhausted all other sources of staffing before recalling the medics from the picket line. In a letter to NHS bosses, the BMA accused health leaders of misusing the system and bowing to political pressure to undermine the strikes. NHS England said they would continue to engage with the BMA in good faith, and they will address the process of considering patient safety mitigation. Mrs Atkins echoed Mr Sunak's comments earlier on Thursday, saying she backed NHS leaders to make mitigation requests, but this has been done completely independent of the government. She said the strikes are having very serious consequences, with 88,000 appointments cancelled during the last set in December. Health officials have warned that this strike will be the worst because it coincides with one of the busiest weeks of the calendar year due to a rising tide of winter bugs and people shoring up problems over the Christmas break. In the first day of the strike on Tuesday, critical instances were declared at Queen Alexandra Hospital in Portsmouth and by the NHS in Nottingham. Meanwhile, more than a dozen hospitals said that the emergency services were busy, with some reporting extremely heightened pressure. Again, guys, I've said it before and I've said it again. The government can solve this issue. They can solve this issue at a whim, but they choose not to. It's very important for me to emphasise this, guys. They are choosing not to deal with this. They're choosing not to get around the table. They've said they're ready to talk at all times. They're ready to get around the table and talk. But we know that they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn. She's saying that she's willing to talk once the strikes are called off. That is an absolute pack of lies. Absolute pack of lies. You cannot trust any of these Conservatives. They've lied way too many times. And this is absolutely no different whatsoever, guys. Again, just rhetoric talk just to try and change the tone, trying to make them sell. And then if the strikes did get called off, they would shout to their times, "Look, we stopped the strikes!" You know, they'll take credit for it, obviously, as well, when they're not even prepared to solve the main issues of the cruxes of the problems with the National Healthcare Service. Remember, you have to remember this: same government in power for 14 years. Nobody else has been in power except them, guys. Just they are the ones who've been in power for all this time. Yeah, not Labour. You can't blame Labour for any of this. This is the Conservatives. This has been for the last 14 years. It's not good enough. So the next one we got, guys, is from the BBC. So the headline here is that French reports criticise the UK's efforts on small boats. The UK is not passing on enough information about small boats crossing the Channel, a French report has said. Now, clearly the government is not. Now, we give a lot of money to the French government to try and tackle migration coming across here. We pay the French a lot of money, ridiculous, stupid amount of money. We British taxpayers are throwing so much money at the French to say, please stop them crossing our boat. But there's actually there have been unconfirmed reports of some French border officials, French police on the coast and whatnot, who are kind of just ignoring the boat crossings, which they have denied. The French government have denied this, but obviously there's no actual. I've not seen any evidence to support that. But the French here, according to this report, are basically saying the UK are not giving us enough information to stop the small boats, and I'm thinking, well, it's not just obviously along the French coast that they're crossing. Obviously, they are at some points they're crossing above in some other other countries as well, along Netherlands and Belgium as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if they're coming from crossing over from Germany. I think that's a bit too far, but they are the vast majority. I believe are doing it from the French side, but. But what I don't see, like, are they making is there enough cooperation being made between the UK and French to reduce the amount of boats crossing? I think is the question we need to ask ourselves. So the UK is not passing on enough information about small boats crossing the Channel, a French report has said. The Court of Accounts, which audits the spending in France, says intelligence provided to the French police was often first level and very general. It said France needs more details about the boats and engines being used about the criminal gangs. The UK Home Office said the report used outdated information and didn't reflect the country's current relationship. The UK's National Crime Agency said it had a close relationship with French law and border agencies. Well then, what's this French report then? But the Court of Accounts reports on the battle against illegal migration concludes that the relationship between UK and France is unequal in terms of exchange of information and intelligence. Britain has sent aside nearly $500 million for France to spend on strengthening its policing on the dunes and beaches along the Calais coast in northern France. This is where smugglers usher migrants onto boats in the early hours to begin the perilous crossing. The report said this funding has contributed to nightly development of 54 police officers and backed up by 135 reservists. They used night fishing equipment and drones to spot the migrants and motorbikes and beach buggies to stop them getting into the water. The NCA is focused on further back in the supply chain on the gangs scoring larger inflatable boats and engines. The government agency works with law enforcement bodies across Europe to develop intelligence about trafficking gangs. Recently, NCA Director General Graham Biggers said 100 boats or engines have been stopped from reaching the shores of France. But the French Court of Accounts suggests the UK is not pulling its weight. Now, I have heard some cases in the past that the UK have worked with other European partners in cracking down on certain gangs in certain parts of Europe. Obviously, they have caught out some of them and caught some of the boats of where they purchased them, where they're getting them from, that kind of stuff. But clearly, that's not been done enough, apparently. Despite the joint declaration of the French and British Interior Ministers on the 14th of November, who were committed to improving the work of dismantling the criminal gangs and their resources, the British are not communicating explicit intelligence on the departures of the small boats or are giving first level of information, which is very general and not cross-referenced, the court said on Thursday. Concerning the ways in which migrants are arriving, the reference of several numbers of boats or engines and the nationalists, the information seems very fragmented, the court then concluded. The NCA has stepped up its efforts in Europe to tackle criminal people smugglers in the last year. It said British officers were now working on the French coast alongside the Germando. The Home Office spokesperson said the report is based on an out-of-date information, does not accurately reflect our current working relationship, including intelligence sharing with France. The department said 84% of migrants had previously prevented from crossing the UK were intercepted on the beach or inland. It said that police had arrested 246 people smugglers in 2023 and 86 people who had piloted small boats across the channel. The NCA's focus on the infrastructure behind the movements out of migrants across the channel has resulted in the seizures of 136 boats and 45 outboard engines, the agency has said. The government claims to have prevented 26,000 attempt crossings as a result of a partnership with France. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and French President Emmanuel Macron have agreed to double the number of French officers deployed to further improve the technology used on the French beaches. We know what can stop the smuggling gangs, guys, and that is opening up legal routes for people to come to the UK. And there are no legal routes for migrants to come to the UK. Whether that is opening something in Calais or somewhere in Europe where people are able to go and they can make their claim, there needs to be that, because people don't have a legal route to do that. And this is going to go on and on and on. And the idea, we know the Rwanda thing is dead and buried. That's why it's not going to happen. And I don't like the fact that Labour are looking at options as well. They haven't. Labour are looking at other. I think Labour have looked at one or two other options as well. I hope not. But this is not going to solve the issue, guys. We are wasting so much taxpayer money at the French, and when we could just set up some kind of asylum system and process people. When I had that with that Sunday roast with Zoe Gardner and Alex from Political X. And she made some really valid points about like the whole point of people setting foot in the country is when they want to claim asylum, and people can't legally do that in the UK, so there needs to be a legal way for them to do that. We can significantly reduce the amount of migration, illegal migration, just by setting up some kind of processing on UK. And but we'll have to wait and see, obviously, because once again, this is going to drag on and on and on, guys. It's not going to go away anytime soon whatsoever. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video. And if you're not a subscriber already, please do subscribe right there. The button there, it says subscribe there, but if you down the bottom, if you're a subscriber, please do. It really does help the algorithm, guys. All that good stuff. Right, the next one we got is an exclusive from iNews with the headline that Tories are banking on social media ad blitz to rescue Sunak's faltering ratings. The Conservative Party has spent almost £85,000 on 49 adverts from Rishi Sunak's social accounts in December. And that's just December alone, guys. Trust me, you're going to be ramping this up all throughout the year. This is a desperate attempt to make himself look good. I mean, this picture of him with kids, like, oh my god. Do these kids have any idea how cruel that man really is? Like, I'm just like, oh my god. Like, I'm kind of like, you know, when I look at this and I'm thinking, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to really pump this stuff, and they're going to put this. The right wing are going to be sticking this stuff in the right wing papers to show the human side of Sunak. They're going to really try and pump this out to really try and filter out the so-called bad stuff that Sunak is done. But one thing that the Conservative Party cannot control is social media. They can't control the narrative, and people on there will point out consistently the failings and faults of the Conservative Party over the last 14 years, and his failings as a Prime Minister. He can't deter from that. He will not be able to dodge that, and people will jump on that. Every time he posts, every time he comments, every time he tries to make himself look good, people will jump on this bandwagon. So, and there are many, many, many organisations out there who are gearing up and ready for this general election to do everything in their power to stop the Conservatives from hanging on to power. So the Conservatives have spent almost £85,000 on presidential-style social media ad campaigns from Rishi Sunak's social accounts in December, almost 5 times the amount Labour spent over the same period. With the UK heading into an election year, the party has gone on a spending blitz in the final weeks of 2023 in a bid to get more people to interact with the Prime Minister's Facebook and Instagram accounts. I wonder how many he's blocked. On Thursday, Mr Sunak said that his working assumption is we'll have a general election in the second half of this year, giving the Prime Minister more than 6 months to improve both his personal rating and the polling for his party. But pollsters have warned that this presidential-style strategy of leading a campaign on Mr Sunak rather than the Conservative Party is a mistake due to his low popularity and past gaffes that make him appear out of touch. Between the 2nd and the 31st of December, the Conservatives paid £84,000 for 49 ads on Mr Sunak's Facebook and Instagram accounts, but published 0 adverts from the party's main account on the platforms in the same period. 12 of these adverts were launched on the 29th of December, are still live and directly encouraging people to follow Rishi Sunak himself rather than directly people to the Conservative Party. See, this is the thing. They're going to try and bank on. They don't want to use the word conservative. They don't want to use that term because they know how toxic that word is. So what they're going to try and do is try to paint Rishi Sunak, separate him, Rishi Sunak from the Conservatives. They're going to try and muddy the waters to confuse some people. I think that's what they're trying to do. The social media adverts include various pictures of Mr Sunak on visits and campaigns with the caption, "I know most things you see from me are what other people say. Hear what I say and do directly from me. Follow today." He doesn't. That's not actually him talking as well, by the way. That's someone else speaking for him. So it's not actually him from him. So that's already a lie. The ad splurge on the Prime Minister's account is 18 times higher than spent on ads from Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's account and 5 times higher than the amount Labour spent overall in December. Labour spent £4,700 on 282 adverts from Sir Keir Starmer's Instagram and Facebook accounts, 4 of which were England-wide and the rest target specific areas and postcodes. The opposition party also spent £10,900 across 725 ads from its main accounts, 20 of which were UK-wide, while the rest target specific areas and postcodes. Sir Keir has 200,000 followers on each of his Facebook and Instagram accounts, much lower than the Prime Minister's, who has 816,000 followers on Facebook and 3 million followers on Instagram. I'm not following him on Facebook and Instagram. I do follow him on Twitter, but I'm not going that far. Mr. Sunak's accounts on the two platforms, which are both owned by Meta, also launched a major campaign between the 4th and 8th of October, targeting selected towns which received £20 million funding under the government's long-term plan for towns. Out of the 55 towns were awarded funding, the ads from Mr. Sunak only targeted 31, including several with slim majorities that the Conservatives won from Labour 2019. They include Hayward, which is in the Hayward and Middleton constituency, won by Chris Clarkson with a 663 vote majority, and Blythe in the Blythe Valley, which Ian Levy won by 712 votes. In total, 84 adverts were launched as part of the campaign, each of which featured a video Mr. Sunak discussing the funding. Colin Burns, senior associate at More in Common, said a presidential strategy was never without risk and may not play well with some voters. Sunak's gas from the contactless cards to the Prada shoes had cut through in focus groups, and the overwhelming impression from the voters that we spoke to who was at the cost of living Sunak didn't get, he told the Eye. He added that a presidential-style strategy would have made some sense if Mr. Sunak was more popular than his party, but highlighted YouGov's polling from last month showed that they were at a negative 49 net favourability. The Prime Minister's favourability rating is so much lower than Sir Keir, who is currently at negative 22 according to YouGov. Sunak would need to be much closer to Starmer in these favourable ratings to justify betting on the president-risky strategy, Mr. Burns had added. Chris Hopkins, director of polling company Savannah, said the Conservatives know their brand is fairly toxic, adding, on the one hand, they're making it all about the leader makes sense, but on the other hand, I think they're mistaken if they believe making a campaign all about Sunak is a good idea. He added, I can't see the Conservatives' ratings picking up on their own doing, and certainly not off the back of social media strategy making it all about Sunak. He's not popular. The problem is he's not popular. He's not popular. He's not well liked. Yes, people will point out that this is the guy that did the Eat Out to help out. They will point out that this is the guy with the furlough scheme during the pandemic. People will point this out, and they will use that to try and paint it. But people know they're in a cost of living crisis. People know they're struggling to make ends meet. And people know and if people know that this man is our Prime Minister, they will ask him, well, what the hell has this man been doing? Even if you're not directly into politics, people will ask, well, what is this man has been doing? What's his party been doing for the last 14 years to make my life better? That's what a lot of middle and low income people are going to be asking themselves. And that's the problem. They don't have a direct, straight up answer to that. So people are going to be angry. So So while it may work on some people, it will work on some people, whether you like it or not. It will work on some people, and the right wing will plug this stuff and saying, "Look what Rishi Sunak is doing. He's doing all these great things, sort of thing." They're going to try and paint a picture. And then I've got a very simple message for you: do not fall for it. Don't be stupid. Okay, this man knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah, except how to use a credit card, of course. Or how to put petrol into a car, or how to use a hammer. Don't fall for it, guys. Just don't fall for it. Let's break the ice, shall we? Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, we've just had some broken news.
Welcome to Broken News. Lower your expectations. The public have been told not to be too optimistic about the forthcoming year. The warning comes in a major new report looking ahead to the next 12 months. Our reporter reports on that report.
For many, it's a time of hope, a time for new beginnings. But this report has warned the new year will most likely be chock full of the same old shit. It says that energy prices will continue to go up to protect the profits of massive companies, and billionaires will continue to control everything while squeezing what they can out of the world's poorest people. Politicians will continue to be big old corrupt arseholes, won't be held to account, and they'll resist any attempt to make voting systems fairer. Client journalists will soldier on with weak propaganda, the tabloid press will carry on being gutter-dwelling shitbags, and thick racists will resume shouting loudly about really stupid stuff they read on Facebook. Some of your favourite celebrities will die, yet the worst arseholes and grifters will live on, finding new and improved ways to make the world incrementally intolerable. The report authors claim your football team will be crapper than you hoped, the referee will be biased, and VAR will be as reliable as a Northern Rail service to literally fucking anywhere. The report also says that the weather won't be as good as you hope on the day you've got something big planned. You'll have a holiday that's overpriced and stressful, and you'll only get ill at weekends and bank holidays. Back to you.
What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
We're up to date, guys. Very nice Happy New Year message from Larry and Paul, guys. Very nice Happy New Year. Oh, I know, we're all doomed. No, we're not doomed, guys. We'll get through this. We'll get through this. Have hope. Have some hope, guys. Have some hope. Right, next one is from The Independent. Let's keep going, guys. So the headline here is Starmer warns that Sunak he'll meet fire with fire as the UK sets for a long and dirty election battle. Sunak is accused of bottling the spring election as he signals ultimatum poll after Labour leader fires a starting gun on a campaign with defiant speech. So Rishi Sunak has not given a date for the general election, guys. Why is he not given a date? What do you think is it? Is it maybe because he might be too scared? Keir Starmer accused him of squatting in number 10, which I really like that tone. I like that he's kind of putting really amping up the pressure really to say, come on, let's have it, mate. Let's call that election. Let's go, lad. Let's go. Sunak is scared, and we know it. We know the guy is scared. And that's not to say we don't trust Keir Starmer, by the way. I just want to point that out. You know, we really want this general election now. You know, we really, really do. Britain is set for a long and dirty general election campaign in 2024 after Rishi Sunak ruled out a spring vote and revealed that he wanted to go to the polls much later in the year. Because he wants to keep us waiting. He's hoping for something will come up. So Keir Starmer's vowed to fight fire with fire as he predicted that the Tories would embark on a nasty and personal attacks in a battle now expected to last until at least October. The Labour leader set out his Project Hope plan during a major speech in Bristol, but indicated that his party was ready to engage in negative campaigning as he warned activists that their rival will go low. The Tory leader raised the prospect of a lengthy and bitter campaign on Thursday when he told reporters that it was his working assumption that he would call the general election in the second half of the year. Labour and the Lib Dems, who have been calling for a May election, immediately accused the Prime Minister of bottling in a spring contest. So Keir claimed that the PM was trying to squat at number 10 for as long as possible. Yeah, it does appear that way, doesn't he? The Independent understands that Mr Sunak is planning an October election. Sources say it's likely to be within the first 2 weeks of that month, with the PM unlikely to wait until mid-November, as reported, since it would clash with the US election. Yeah, I don't think you want it clashing with the US election. That would be bad. Speaking on a visit to a youth centre in Nottinghamshire, Mr Sunak told broadcasters, so my working assumption is that we will have a general election in the second half of the year. But he can't give a date. Why can't he give a date, guys? It's because he's scared. We know he's scared, guys. We know he is. Apparently this picture, guys, this was at a youth centre, according to people online. He was in a youth centre, guys. Just going to ask you a question. Does that look like a youth centre to you? And can you spot any youths in there? Oh, I think I see one youth in there, maybe. But you let me know in the comments below, guys. The Conservative leader declined to rule out a May election categorically, but repeated his intention to hold on later in the year, adding, in the meantime, I've got lots that I want to get on with, such as bookmakers immediately slash odds on an autumn election, the Labour leader taunted his Tory rival to agree to an election soon, saying, if he's not being clear, I don't think he's setting a date. What is he hiding? So Keir told Sky News, I would like to see an election as soon as possible. I think the vast majority of the public want to see an election as soon as possible. People can't afford the PM to be squatting for months on end this year. The Labour leader argued that he had made a positive case after a speech asking voters to hang on to the flickering hopes in your heart that things can get better, but warned that he would not pull any punches when the Conservatives launched their own attacks. He told Sky News, They will go low. What I'm saying is, if they want to go into fire into this election, we'll meet fire with fire, he argued. That negative campaigning was justified because the stakes of this election are so high for the working people. There are massive stakes on the line here. Just because the polls are in favour of Labour does not mean that the Conservatives still can't win this general election, guys. I know it sounds stupid, but people will still go out of their way to vote Conservative, no matter how bad things are in this country. So the stakes are really, really high for this. While the Tories are expected to attack Sir Keir's record as a Director of Public Prosecution, an attempt to link him to the decision to drop an investigation into Jimmy Savile, Labour faced criticism for accusing Mr Sunak of not wanting to see the child sex abusers jailed. Labour sources have made clear that Mr Starmer was told when the Crown Prosecution Service dropped the case against the infamous child sex abuser in 2009. Meanwhile, Conservative polling guru Robert Hayward told The Independent that the most serious Tory MPs favour an autumn election, though some are worried the local elections in May will only add to the doom and gloom. The Tory peer believes on balance that Mr Sunak was wise to wait in the hopes of an economic revival, and he said that the PM was smart to rule out spring election today to stop Labour going on and on about the runaway narrative. Lord Hayward added, "It's not risk-free because the local elections will be bad, but the polls are still so awful, and it's just possible that voters will become more inclined to consider his competence if inflation and interest rates continue to fall." The former number 10 Chief of Staff Gavin Barwell said Mr Sunak was sensible to dampen the speculation down on the spring election, avoiding the Labour trap of letting the speculation continue and being accused of bottling it when it didn't happen. Well, the more time passes, the more he will be accused, and until he confirms it, it's just going to bang on and on and on, isn't it, really, to be fair? And Mr Sunak dangled the prospect of a future tax cut while speaking to the group of voters in Mansfield as he pointed to the easing of national insurance from 12% to 10%. Why are you touching the national insurance? Don't touch it. We don't want tax cuts, yeah? We want you to put money in our goddamn pockets. We want to do more because we manage the economy responsibly. We can cut your taxes, give you and your family peace of mind and confidence that your future is going to be better for you and your children, he said. Yeah, because the last 14 years have been really good for people, haven't they? The Tory leader appeared to concede that making progress in 23 had been difficult but promised a better year ahead. He said, "I'll be honest, it wasn't the easiest years for any of us. I know that 2024 is going to be a better year. It will be a better year when you are kicked out on your backside out of number 10. Mr Sunak also called on junior doctors to end the strikes. We've already discussed this, guys. Well, no, we don't want that. The PM backed NHS leaders after a number of hospitals pleaded for junior doctors to leave the picket lines and return to work amid patient safety. Yeah, we've already talked about that. Sir Keir has pledged in his Bristol speech the hope to an exhausted Britain in 2024 as he accused the miserable Tories of pointless populist gimmicks. He said that a Labour government wanted to cut taxes but insisted that reversing flagging growth would be the first priority if he takes power at the next general election. Sir Keir also conceded his planned £28 billion a year green energy investment would shrink depending on economic conditions, saying it would be subject to strict physical rules. The first lever that we want to pull and the first place to go is growth in our economy because that's what we've been missing for 14 years, says the Labour boss. Any tax cuts would have to be fair and affordable, and we have to be realistic about this, but I think the place to go is the growth on this. Speaking to reporters at the end of his speech in Bristol, the Labour leader also said that claims that he wanted to duck the TV debates when Mr Sunak were nonsense, adding bring it on. Yeah, that was a male reporter asking Sir Keir Starmer the question of why are you ducking TV debates, and Keir Starmer wasn't. He basically said, "I'm not ducking them. Bring it on," is what he basically said. The same. If Labour does win win a majority and they go into power, I generally want to see Sir Keir Starmer eating a beer, having a beer and curry, and I want it videoed and everything, and I want the Daily Mail to get tagged on everything around social media so that they get shown, just to stick the knife into that disgusting so-called newspaper outlet, media organisation that misleads and misinforms the general public. I really hope he does do that, if I'm honest, guys. There are absolute terrible lot. But as for this election itself, like, why are we waiting? Why are we waiting? Why are we holding up? He hasn't ruled out spring election, but it's looking likely an autumn one. I will say, obviously, one other thing as well, and this is really, really important, that if you're planning to tactically outvote the Conservatives where you are, or do tactical voting, please don't Google it. Do not Google tactical voting. Do not do that. you go to stopthetories.org, or you go to the betting odds, the bookies, and look at the odds. That's the best way to vote. Best way to cast your vote if you want to tactically outvote the Conservatives in your area. Do not Google it. Do not Google it, because there will be fake websites misleading you. That is the best thing. So just put that in mind, guys. Really, really important. Got 2 more stories to go through, guys. While you're here, make sure you hit the like button, share across social media, and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video, guys. And of course, you guys, if you want to financially support me, you can do so for just 99p. You can be a YouTube member, guys. You get access from custom emojis, and every time you comment on any of my videos as a member, I always respond to your comments. And if you're in the live stream, of course, you will get a shout out as well. That stuff, all that stuff, guys, for just 99p. And of course, yeah, you can get exclusive content on Rumble. If you have a Rumble account, you can follow me on Rumble, or on Patreon as well. You get exclusive content on there as well, guys. Check out all the links in the description. Right, let's go to the next one, guys. This one is from Open Democracy. It's it's a few days old, but I think it's still worth talking about. So the headline is refugees left sleeping around train stations to meet Sunak's backlog pledge. One man was given just 2 hours to leave his accommodation after learning his asylum application had been granted, guys. So, one thing that Rishi Sunak has been trying to do is clear the backlog before the end of the year. And they've been making desperate attempts to try and make it look like that they've cleared it. Pretty much just throwing everything at the kitchen sink here to do it. Any means necessary, pretty much. But for people just being dumped and left around like homeless people, it's just pretty sickening, to say the least. It's pretty horrible. And again, I've talked about the humanity side of these things, guys. They're human beings with emotion and feelings, and they need to be treated as such. It's just not been good enough whatsoever from the government when it comes to dealing with migration. So the Home Office have turfed a refugee out onto the streets with 2 hours' notice, leaving him to sleep in Paddington Station for a week while surviving on coffee and biscuits. Another man who had been granted asylum had to sleep rough outside another train station, having fled Iraq because of risk of homophobic violence. Sadid and Samir were among refugees abandoned on Britain's streets as the government tried desperately to fulfil Rishi Sunak's pledge to clear the asylum backlog. Open Democracy has learned. The Home Office has been abruptly forcing people out of temporary accommodation without enough time to find elsewhere to live. Charity said the number of homeless refugees coming to them had jumped after the Home Office cut the time it gave successful asylum applications to secure a home. Saeed, a 25-year-old from Yemen who asked us not to use his surname, told Open Democracy he was threatened by police and evicted from the hotel where he was staying with a knock on the door. After waiting over 2 years for a decision from the Home Office, Saeed was granted refugee status at the end of October. But he wasn't notified of the decision until mid-November, when his biometric residence permit arrived. A day later, despite having barely processed the news of his status, he got a knock on his door from a member of reception staff and a security worker telling him he needed to leave the hotel or else they would call the police. I'm a peaceful person, he told Open Democracy. I don't know all the rules here. I just got my status and I didn't want a problem with the police because my experience in the Middle East with the police wasn't very good. I was scared. After convincing the hotel to give him 2 hours to pack his belongings, he left and made his way to West London train station where he lived for a week. I was terrified, I was cold, I was hungry. Cheap black filter coffee and some biscuits was my meal every day. I tried to eat at night before sleeping because I didn't want to sleep hungry, he said. Sarah Navjim, a co-founder of Refugees at Home, a charity that connects refugees and asylum seekers with hosts, said it's outrageous. He had no notice at all. Nadine, who currently hosts Sally, told Open Democracy he was worried that if the police came, he'd leave to remain refugee status would be revoked, of course. But that's not true. But how would he not know that if it was not true? He wouldn't know. If you think you struggled for 2.5 years for refugee status, and that if the police come, you're going to lose it, you would leave. Until recently, it was Home Office policy that anyone granted refugee status in the UK would be given 28 days to quit the temporary accommodation provided to them. Yeah, he was not given any notice whatsoever. This is disgusting. You know, this is how they're being treated, guys. Someone who left and were treated indifferently in their country, and because they've been, yeah, it's just, yeah. You guys know how I feel about this. The notice period would typically begin from the moment their refugees receive their biometric residence permit, an identity document without which they cannot demonstrate their right to work, rent a home, or even open a bank account. The Red Cross have previously said there isn't enough time for refugees to move on to mainstream benefits or find elsewhere new to live. But in July, the Home Office changed its guidance so that refugees are instead given 28 days notice from the moment their asylum claim is granted, effectively shortening the time they are given. A 28-year-old refugee told Open Democracy that he had to sleep rough outside a train station in Colchester because the Home Office policy changed. Samir, who did not give his real name, said he fled Iraq in 2014 because he feared he would likely be killed by ISIS if they discovered he was gay. He said he could not return to the country because his family does not accept his sexuality. The LGBTQ people in Iraq have been executed by ISIS and routinely face violence from police and armed forces, according to a 2022 report by Human Rights Watch. Samir told the Colchester Borough Council he was at risk of homelessness in late September. He described the council as merciless because it refused to offer him emergency housing even when he provided a letter from a GP describing his mental health condition. Councils have a legal duty to provide emergency housing to those who can show they are particularly vulnerable for reasons including health conditions. Colin MacDonald, who works at a local charity Refugee, Asylum Seeker and Migration Centre, said decisions were arbitrary and likely dependent on capacity. I had someone who was blind in the eye and still didn't get priority from the council, he said. Just yesterday I booked a council appointment from someone and there was a question on the form asking if they're going to be made homeless in the next 56 days. I ticked yes, but the council still gave me an appointment in 76 days' time, said MacDonald. The council told Samir that he would have to find a place to rent himself. I tried to follow advice from the council, but I struggled to find anyone who would rent to me because I'm looking for a job, he said. Samir wrote to his MP, Will Quint, a former Conservative minister, out of desperation. A caseworker contacted the council on behalf of the MP and later forwarded a response seen by Open Democracy to Samir. The council did not consider Samir's mental health condition a priority need and suggested that he look for a place to rent outside Colchester. What the fuck is this? It's just a case of just passing the buck, passing the problem from one other thing to another. Like, what is this? What is this? This is ridiculous. Samir said he received his biometric residence permit on the 5th of October, but only received a letter explaining that he would be evicted on the 20th of October, giving him less than 2 weeks' notice, despite applying for universal credit as soon as he could. Sammy only received the first payment the day before he was forced to leave his accommodation. The RMAA was able to find Samir a place, a night shelter in Colchester, where he had been sleeping since November. MacDonald said since July the charity has helped 200 people find somewhere to live and they are being approached by 2 homeless refugees a day on average. Homelessness among asylum seekers recently granted refugee status tripled between August and October compared to the same period the previous year, according to statistics obtained by the Big Issue. Sunak claimed yesterday that he delivered on these pledges to clear the legacy backlog of asylum cases by the end of last year, but the government's own figures show there are still more than 4,500 cases in that backlog. Nathan said although she was pleased the Home Office was clearing the backlog quicker, if you then turf them out so quickly, you're just making a homelessness person. Yeah, so rather than actually dealing with the asylum seeker, so it goes from an asylum seeker to a homeless person. So basically, you ended up putting more homeless people out on the street, guys. That's essentially what we're doing here. A lot of charities have just completely closed their doors because they're completely overwhelmed, she added. In late December, the Home Office quietly reversed its eviction policy, though MacDonald said it has not led to the decrease in homelessness numbers. The Home Office and Colchester City Council had been approached for comment. At the time of this recording, I've not seen an update since then, guys. But it's still absolutely disgusting, to say the least, guys. My heart goes out to him and to anyone who's been thrown out simply because there's not enough accommodation and there's too much for these charities are taking on too much as it is. It's just overwhelming for them, and they're being forced to take on all of this, and it's not right. Just to appeal to show some numbers that we're cracking down on it, and it's just like it's just so infuriating, guys. It's so infuriating. Where is the humanity? There is none with this Conservative government. None at all. frustrating to say the least. Right, got one more story for you guys, and this is from Byline Times. The headline is: the latest Conservative misinformation warning as Anti-Sadiq Khan camp accused of gutter politics over the murder status. Tottenham Tories have falsely claimed the murder rate in London is higher than New York. So this is about misinformation, guys. One thing that the Conservatives are going to be ramping up as we get to all these elections, not just the general election, but mayoral elections, local elections. The power of misinformation. It is rife, and they're going to use it everywhere and every way they can to discredit people. And Sadiq Khan I know is a controversial for some people, but he has been a decent London mayor. But because of who he is, people see differently of him, and people think that he's terrible for London. The Conservative candidate lined up against him is crap, really, really crap. So if Sadiq Khan doesn't stay on as mayor of London, I really do worry for the city. But the power of misinformation is going to be ramped up without a shadow of a doubt, guys, and we need to be careful of it. So our local Conservative association has been accused of gutter politics after falsely claiming that the murder rate was higher in London than in New York ahead of this May's London mayoral election. The Tottenham Conservative Association put out a graphic on social media claiming that the London murder rate is higher than New York, with a picture of Labour's Mayor Sadiq Khan. The post, which approximately included an image of disgraced Tory ex-MP and Mayor Boris Johnson, claimed knife crime in London is rising at its fastest rate in 5 years, with more than 40 instances reported to the police every day. Gang warfare, street robbery and gun crime are all on the rise as well. End the Khan crime wave, vote Conservative in May 2024. I can absolutely guarantee you guys, if you are someone from London and you are watching this, I can absolutely guarantee you the Conservative candidate will not do a bloody thing about these crime numbers in any way, shapes or forms, even if they were accurate, even if they were more than New York. I absolutely guarantee you the Conservative mayor will do F all about these numbers. F all. They will not make a difference. Okay? They will not. I get the criticism of Sadiq Khan. I get it. But if you vote for the Conservative candidate, yeah, that person will not make a difference for London. It will not. Twitter ex-readers added a community note providing important context. London's murder rate in 2023 was much lower than in New York's. London 2023's murder rate was 12.7 million. New York's 2023 murder rate was 44.9. That's 8.46 million people with 380 murders. This misleading post remains live as of lunchtime. So they were misleading people. It didn't matter that it was a lie. The matter is that the information was out there. That people in London actually believe that the murder rate in London is actually higher than New York, but the information has already been put out there despite the fact that it is wrong. It doesn't see, this is the thing you guys need to understand. It's not the fact that that they're pumping out lies and that they know that they're pumping out lies and they're misinforming the public. The point is that once it is out there, it's out there. And people will see that, but people don't go out of their way to see the context of being told that this information is inaccurate. People will believe it, and that's the thing. This is what we mean by dirty. This is going to be a dirty elections. All of these. Gavin Hayes, a senior criminology research fellow at London Metropolitan University and senior associate fellow at the Police Foundation, replied simply, "You're making stuff up." He added, verified sources know the London murder rate is higher than New York. London's 2023 104 murders, population 8.8 million. That's 12 per million. New York City, 2023, 380 million, population 8.3 million, 45.6 per million people. One reader replied, "I promise I will vote Tory in the next mayoral and general election this year if you can back up that statement about murder rates in London versus New York City with reliable data. If you cannot do so, then you will just have to apologise." They're not going to apologise. Another added, "Imagine using the disgraced former PM as an advert for anything, who wasted £55 million of taxpayer cash on a garden bridge which never materialised." Yes, remember that, yeah, among some of the other dumb things that the former mayor of London, Boris Johnson, wasted £55 million of £55 million, guys, was wasted on a garden bridge. How did that do? You know, this is the same guy, when he was Prime Minister, he actually wanted to make, this is, I kid you not, yeah, there was a story about he wanted to make a magical roundabout between England, Scotland and Ireland. Other branded crime rates as a result of the National Conservative Orchestra. It is a Tory crime wave by enormous Tory cuts, wrote activist Martin Remains. It follows a now deleted post from the Tottenham Conservative last November showing Keir Starmer with a speech bubble saying, Greece, here are the marbles, Argentina, here are the Falklands, Rotherham, here are our children, referring to the sex abuse ring in Yorkshire operating in the early 2000s. Well, that's just nonsense. Like, the Greek marbles are actually theirs. It belongs to them anyway. So that's the first lie anyway. So even Keir Starmer knows that. At no point has Sir Keir Starmer said anything about handing the Falklands back to Argentina, when back in 2015, I believe it was, the people of Falklands actually had a vote on whether they wanted to remain part of the Britain over there in the Falklands, or be a part of Argentina, and the people there voted overwhelmingly to remain part of the United Kingdom. Believe it or not, they had an independent vote earlier, several years ago. So that's the Rotherham. And the Rotherham hearing our children. Again, just misinformation, guys. Don't be so quick to jump. It's so important, guys. When you hear something online, please, please, please take everything with a pinch of salt and don't jump to conclusions. Don't jump into the cesspit of saying this must be true. Do some research. Don't jump into assumptions, guys. Be very careful about what you read online and what papers say, because they really are going to misinform you a lot this year, guys. It's really important. I can't stress that enough. Rob Blackie, Lib Dem London Mayoral candidate, told Byline Times London's Conservatives are getting weirder and weirder. The Conservatives are more interested in dividing London than uniting it, chasing headlines rather than providing serious solutions. Their mayoral candidate likes Brexit, Trump, and tweets that praises far-right Egan Powell, and the Tottenham Conservatives appear to have completely lost the plot. We need a mayoral election that holds Sadiq Khan to account without descending into the gutter, and I'm determined to provide that choice. At least Rob Blackie is a reasonable candidate that's going to fight for it. He's not going to win it, but he certainly would be more interesting than the Conservative one, that's for sure. Lib Dem campaigner Justine Hellcliffe branded the Rotherham Post appalling politics. A source close to Sadiq Khan accepted there is a problem with the youth violence in London and elsewhere, but said real progress has been made on homicides. Yes, okay, that is good, but still, he still has work to be done. Nobody's denying that he's not got work to do still. They noted that 104 homicides in 2023 is the lowest in any year since Khan took office, with 109 homicides in the full calendar year 2022, 153 in 2019, 117 in 2016. Homicides committed using a knife or other sharp instruments is 68, and homicides committed using firearms 8 are both lower than any other year since 2016. Burglary is down 90% overall, and gun crime is down 20% since Sadiq became the mayor, the source added. Overall, the rate of violence against persons offences of per 1,000 of the population is lower in London, that's 27.74%, than the average across England and Wales, 35.26, and considerably lower than most similar forces nationally, according to the latest RNS crime statistics for the 12 months to June 2023. The affair follows Rishi Sunak coming under fire this Tuesday for falsely claiming that the government has cleared the asylum backlog and 112,000 long-standing unresolved claims. In fact, 4,500 historic complex cases continue to lack a decision, while the number of current asylum claims that are unresolved sits at nearly 100,000. Embarrassingly, Sunak's ex-post was publicly corrected with a slide note stating the backlog remained, accompanied by the BBC report link disproving the claim. I do love those. You're going to be seeing a lot of these corrections on X. You're going to see a lot of it. Refugee law specialist Dan Soffrey wrote, government's claims about clearing the backlog aren't just misleading, they're an outright lie. They're so busy chasing headlines that they're putting vulnerable people even at risk and gearing up for countless legal battles. Even Spectator editor Frantier Nelson branded it a false claim. In December, Tory MP and former anti-corruption champion John Penrose told Politics Home that it will be a huge challenge to tackle election misinformation this year, adding, if the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, then this is an arms race. Tottenham's Conservatives and CCHQ have been contacted for comment, but clearly they've not answered the call. I wonder why they haven't answered the call. They know they've pumped out misinformation, And trust me, them and lots of other conservative organisations are going to be pumping out more misinformation. Not just about London Mayor, but lots of other mayors, lots of other councils. They're going to do that all across the spectrum to mislead and misinform the public about their local councillor or Labour candidates or whatever. That's what they're going to do. This is a dirty battle. We've already spoke a little bit about this in the with the independent one. But yeah, this is going to be a long haul, guys. But like I said before, I wrap this up, guys. Please, 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 whatever information you take here, whether it's on social media, whether it's newspapers, whether it's from YouTubers, please take it with a pinch of salt. If you're not 100% confident about the information, go and double check it somewhere else before jumping to conclusions. I know a lot of you guys rely and trust a lot of us YouTubers, but even us YouTubers can make mistakes. So I would say just be careful about what information you take in this year, because there is going to be a lot of misinformation and dirty tactics by the Conservatives to try to throw us off guard about what's going to be happening out there. So please, please, please take things tread carefully about what you take in, guys. And with that, guys, I've come to the end of Regan's News Round of episode 20. 20 episodes in, guys. Thank you guys so much for helping me reach 20 episodes of Regan's News Rounds. What did you guys think of the 7 news stories that we had today? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm interested to hear your feedback, guys. I really do appreciate it. Before you go, if you can, hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon to be notified when I upload another video. And be prepared, as also, if you can, subscribe. It really does help the channel as well. And of course, if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so for just 99p by becoming a YouTube member. Or if you want to as well, you can also you can join me on Patreon for exclusive content on there, Patreon. And also, if you have a Rumble account, you can join me on Rumble for some world news there as well, guys. So I'm spread about as well, not just on YouTube. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.